going to give it a couple of minutes just to let people join in. But in the meantime, for all the attendees that have come in, as you can see, a poll has just popped up on your screen. If you could please just answer that, just so we can start getting some of the results through, as we're going to be writing a report and also a white paper at the end of this. Thank you very much. So I'll give it another minute. Right, good evening, everybody, or afternoon or morning, depending on where you are in the world. My name is Craig, and I am the program manager for Ex-Military Careers. Just a little background from about Ex-Military Careers. So our mission is to make a real difference to the lives of the military community by providing a pathway for veterans, service leavers, spouses, and reservists to their future career. No member of the armed forces community should face any sort of disadvantage when leaving the services. There's your skills, approach to work and experience are recognized and valued by us. So we are determined to ensure that veterans continue confidently to pursue and achieve their ideal career. This is our first webinar that we're doing in a series of global Ex-Military Careers live panel discussions. Today we will be talking about career opportunities in the new normal. You can expect 45 minutes to 1 hour of panel discussion with a live Q&A and then some networking at the end for those that wish to continue the conversation further. We want to make this discussion as engaging as possible. So if you have any questions for our panel throughout the webinar, feel free to ask them in the side panel or in the question Q&A section that we will go through. And we will go through as many of these as possible. So before we kick things off, please note that this is being recorded and will be uploaded to our YouTube channel, where you can also access our previous webinars. So Lucy, please could you put the second poll up? So we should be getting the second poll coming up now. The reason why we're doing this poll is because we're planning on doing a white paper and also planning on doing quite an in-depth report about the transition that people have from leaving the military to civilian streets. With our sort of database, we can gather a huge amount of numbers, and we feel that this will make a huge difference to our audience, so hence why we're doing it. So before I hand over, I'd like to introduce you to our host and chair, Adam Flyfoot. So a little bit of background about Adam. Adam joined the RAF in 1983 and completed a number of UK and overseas tours over a 12-year career, with his last posting as a VIP steward at RAF Strike Command in High Wycombe. Adam has over 20 years experience in HR, resource management, and recruitment. Initially, the recruitment side, agency side, before moving in-house, where he delivered assignments, cable and wireless, Nortel, and classic FM, GWR, and experience. Adam is currently a self-employed consultant working on a HR project. Working on a HR project for a global financial service firm, where he's a member, and he's a member of the Veterans Network, and actively a member of the City and Veterans Network. Adam, over to you.
Thank you very much. So first of all, I'd like to take the opportunity on behalf of the panel and myself to welcome you to this roundtable. I am reading slightly from the script to the left, just so that I don't forget anything. So if I move my head, apologies. We have come together to discuss what the landscape for job opportunities might look like as we come out of the other side of COVID. We've seen that many of the mainstream opportunities that would have attracted veterans in the past have been disrupted as companies scaled down or decentralized the traditional workplace. We've seen that this has left people unsettled, both in the job market, but also people entering the job market. And in some cases, people aren't equipped to adapt to some of these new ways of working. To help to address this, we've brought specially chosen panel together to share their insights, to help our veterans get a sense of career opportunities out there and how you might go about hunting them down and throwing your hat into the ring, so to speak. And for the panel to talk about what they feel are the key transferable skills that will help you in your transition from the military or as you continue your transition into civilian work. At the same time as employees themselves, the panel can share the opportunities that exist in their companies. So I'm going to ask each of the panel members to introduce themselves, to talk about themselves, who they work for, and how they found the transition from the military into work. So first of all, I'll start with yourself, Andrea. Can you tell us a bit about yourself in the words of Cilla Black? Who are you and where do you come from?
So thanks, Adam. So hi, everyone. Great to be here today. So I'm Andrea Dunlop. I'm managing director of a company called the Access Group, which is a software company, and I run their regulated payments division. So obviously this hasn't always been my career. So I also did time in the RAF, so 13 years in telecoms. And if I'm brutally honest, I probably never had the career in the military I wanted to have. So I think when I left, I was incredibly hungry and keen to pursue a career that I really had felt had lacked for many years. And a bit like Adam, I joined in the 80s. So I think it was a challenging time around that period for promotion. But what I did when I transitioned, I focused quite hard on what I felt were complementary skills. And I guess having been in telecoms in the Air Force, or, you know, the equivalent in the Army would be signals, was looking at what the transferable skills were. And really for me, that was really around IT, network engineering and project management. And at the time, you know, we were all kind of ushered towards the education centre. And I think they've got a central, I can't remember what you call it now, that you guys use on your exit. But I made a conscious decision as part of my exit that I wasn't going to do any military courses. I wanted to be on courses with other civilians. You know, I'd been so, I guess, institutionalized in my 13 years. I felt that I had to make a really strong break. So for those last 2 years that I served, I spent most of my time, you know, doing, you know, university courses, any college courses I could get onto. And then my resettlement courses were all civilian courses, not a single military course in there. And interestingly, when I did my first interview, which actually turned out to be my first job in Civvy Street, thankfully in the military we were paid such little salary that the wages when I first entered were significantly higher than anything I'd ever had in the military. So one of the things that I did when I exited and had this first interview was really negotiate around this, the fact that I would do a trial period and that actually I could work. And it sounds terrible, I'm actually even embarrassed to even admit this, that I offered to actually do the job for less than advertised to get that opportunity. And they snapped my hand off. They gave me the opportunity, gave me 6 months to come in and prove myself on less salary than the role was advertised. And that literally was my break into the industry. And from that moment forward, I have to tell you, I haven't looked back. I've had a hugely successful second career. And I think that hunger, the 13 years of that frustration and building up that hunger really drove me for this second career that I've had. Yeah, so that I don't know what else I can share on that transition piece, but hopefully that just gives you some insight that you know, there is opportunities and you have to really just go out there and grab them. And I think you've got to be creative on those first opportunities that you get through the door into a civilian organisation.
Amazing, thanks, Andrea. Carl, can I share the same question with you about yourself and about your transition to civilian work?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Adam. Hello, everyone. So Carl Simons. Right now, I'm the Chief Health, Safety and Wellbeing Officer at Thames Water. I'm actually about to step down from Thames after 8 years. But I left the forces after 13 years in the British Army. I left as a corporal. I was in the REME. And during my time, I guess, leading up to leaving, resettlement kind of wasn't back then what it is nowadays. 20 years ago, it was very different. But what I've seen throughout my time, I transitioned into a extremely low-paid job, but I wanted to do health, safety, and environmental management back then, and I've stayed in that sort of role. I bounced about operations a little bit, being a mechanical engineer, but generally, I've enjoyed my time in Civvy Street right the way through. I've never really been unemployed as such, because I think those transferable skills that we'll talk about later have always suited employers very well. I've worked all over the world as a civilian, from Australasia to India to the Gulf, right through to Canada. So I've been everywhere. And it's interesting. I think the military career that most of us have had, as you may not think this right now, and you'll be thinking, what do I want to do? But it's set me up very well in terms of, I left the army with very little qualifications apart from my mechanical engineering trade. And then the company I went to put me through a university degree. So it's incredible the opportunities that are out there within the civilian world, and how employers actually invest in their employees. So I'm looking forward to speaking a lot more about that transition, and how, at the minute, I guess, how Thames Water and what we're doing within Thames to be able to transition people quite well. And I'm very much linked into a lot of the major organizations, and how they're all following the same sort of recruitment path. So more to come.
Amazing. Thanks, Carl. Joe, can I bring the same question to you about yourself and about your transition?
So good evening, everyone. So I'm Jo Hitchmo, and I'm a recruitment business partner for a company called Zoom. And I left the army after 30 years service November last year. I originally joined in 1990 as a chef, and spent most of my career attached to infantry units, and completed numerous overseas and operational tours, overseas exercises, sorry. And then in 2011, I decided I wanted a new challenge. And that's when I got offered the role as a recruiter in Aldershot Careers Office. And then from there, I moved back home in 2015 and took a recruiting role with a unit in Cardiff, and finished my time with 203 Welshfield Hospital. And then my transition from the military started back last year, and I started looking for civilian jobs 8 months before I was due to leave, getting my CV on different platforms and getting either no contact back or sorry, you haven't been successful this time. And then I had a phone call one day from Zoom asking if I wanted to apply for the role as recruitment business partner. And then I got offered the role, and I terminated my service 5 months early to take this role. Transition didn't really hit me until I had my final medical, but working with Zoom and having a few ex-military colleagues within Zoom has eased that transition. And it's not the big bad world that everybody thinks it is out there. And there are people on the other side within companies that will help you transition and fit into that role. Qualification wise, I've done my recruitment qualifications through the army, which are mapped over to civilian qualifications. So all those were in place, and I still have all my chefing qualifications, but I prefer the fast pace with Zoom and the recruitment, and it's getting to meet different people every single day.
Brilliant. Thanks, Joe. Recruiting, if you're a born nosy person, recruitment is an amazing career path for you. I promise you. So, and Alan, can I throw the same question at you?
Hi everyone, my name's Alan Hewitt. I'm currently the Operations Director at OneWeb, who's a global network providing company. I served 9 years in the Air Force. I was an aerospace systems operator. I left as a junior ranks, senior aircraftman at the time. I think the ranks have changed slightly since then. I joined in the late 80s, served 9 years, left in 97. There was zero transition support when I left, similar to Andrea. There was no support, there was no courses. You could go into the library and read a book, but it was very much frowned upon, looked on as disdain that you was leaving the Air Force. Why would you do that? So I was put into Civvy Street, no CV, not very well prepared for it, but I had quite a limited number of contacts who had left the Air Force, who I remained in contact with. And through those contacts, I then found a job within telecoms. And I treated it as a second chance. I treated it as, I've done 9 years. I've had a very good apprenticeship. I've learned an awful lot about operations, procedures and processes, chain of command, information flow, which was ideally suited for telecoms. My career has taken me various places. I've looked for interesting opportunities, never been afraid to apply for a job that's based in Bermuda, that actually ends up being in New York and then ends up being in London, working for companies that say, we have an opportunity in Hong Kong. Yeah, absolutely, I'll take that. And just going for it with gusto. So again, reiterating what people say, it's not a big bad world out there. There's good opportunities for people who are prepared to take it. Over to you, Adam.
Thank you very much. It's interesting, all of the comments. Thank you. You're right, Joe. Having companies with ex-military people in them will help you with that transition. And over the years, and I've been on hundreds of interviews, and there are, in my experience, 3 types of hiring manager. Hiring managers who are really impressed with your military service, hiring managers who are indifferent to it, and hiring managers who resent it because they failed the entrance test to the parachute regiment and don't ever want to. But what I found really, really valuable, and I learned very quickly as a steward, is to play to your audience. So understanding who's researching who's interviewing you, and then letting them lead you into the conversation about the military rather than thrusting it upon them, will invariably get them to bring it into the conversation before you do, which helps you when you start to communicate on your military career. So thank you very much for the introduction. So what I'd like to do next then is I'd like to ask the panel 3 questions if we've got time. And the first question I'd like to ask then, and I'm going to start with Joe this time. So in the current climate, how do you see your industry evolving as an employer to adapt to the new ways of working as a result of COVID? How has it impacted your approach to attracting talent from the military community?
So with Zoom being a relatively new full fibre network, and that gives you more, by the way, and we've recently completed a build up in Henley-on-Thames, and then we started the build in Hereford on the 1st of this month, 1st of February, and we've recently announced 2 more regions this week. So we are fast and rapidly growing. We work within COVID restrictions and regulations, and due to the service that we provide, Zoom employees are classed as key workers, and all our interviews are conducted either over the phone or via MS Teams. And we're not able to attend careers fairs at the moment, so we've changed our approach by attending virtual careers fairs and placing our signage, adverts and posters all around the area of Hereford. And we also advertise our roles on numerous platforms, including Ex-Military Careers. And this is how we've attracted both sides, including the military. And also, due to us having more and more companies enrolling into the Armed Forces Covenant, service leavers and veterans have the opportunity to apply to all roles within the industries. So it's put it out there, and it's much more, what's the word I'm looking for? Knowledge to get ex-military service, well, ex-service leavers on board. Sorry, I got a bit muddled there. But I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, very much. Thank you. You're absolutely right. I think a lot of people have, there's a lot more knowledge and a lot more experience across the organizations now. It's a much more popular topic than it ever was, particularly going back to the sort of early to mid 90s when there was little to no knowledge of veterans recruitment. So you're absolutely right. Thank you. Alan, to you then, how do you see your industry evolving as an employer to adapt?
Yeah, so interestingly, we do the same. We're classed as key workers within the telecom sector. All of our interviews are via Teams, video calls. We don't do face-to-face sessions anymore. We're actually onboarding people we're hiring at the moment. And even though they're ultimately will be office-based roles, we're actually working in a business continuity mode at the moment where people are working from home, but ultimately they will come back into the office. I think it's important to mention that companies are finding it difficult. You know, there's lots of challenges, whether it's a large company, medium or small. Cost is a big thing that people are trying to monitor. So we're hiring people just in time. So we're often waiting for a task and then going out to the market and looking for somebody who can start near enough immediately. We do factor in anything between 1 to 3 months for notice periods. If you're leaving the services, you could well be competing with somebody who's actually on a 3 months notice period. So don't worry about the fact that you've got 1 month or 2 months or 3 months to go before applying for roles. What I would also say as well is, even if you've got a longer resettlement period, still apply for roles. Good companies will see good talent and they will keep those CVs on file, and they will then contact individuals when roles come up that are suitable for them. I've contacted many people and the response has been, I've now found a job, which is great, you know, but I'm not going to lose out on a good candidate because they've made me aware that they're looking for a role 6 months before I need them.
Amazing, really, really good point. Thank you very much for that, Alan. Andrea, what's your experience been like? How is your industry evolving?
Yeah, so I mean, we're pretty much all, you know, now moving to remote working. I think going forward, you know, certainly I've made the decision for my business that we're going to be a hybrid model. So while I'll look to maintain an office, all of my teams have the option to work permanently from home, or if they want to come into an office for a couple of days a week, then they can do. And that's the model we'll go back to once we come out of COVID. But what I do think is that I think that when you're hiring, and certainly I've been hiring these last couple of months all the way through COVID, we've continued to hire. So if anyone is looking for roles, we have an active careers page. So we're looking for a variety of skills. I have changed probably what I'm looking for in people. And I definitely think that the longer term strategy of having the remote working aspects means the communication skills and the people skills are so much more important now than maybe they'd been previously, when you were taking on maybe junior people and they would have the chance to spend time and development with people in offices. That's a lot harder now. So those softer skills are definitely much more important to us, because it's harder when you're trying to drive change, transformation, and deliver projects in a virtual environment. So being able to communicate, being able to still drive things and being remote is super important. So I do look for that, you know, in people when I'm hiring around their skill sets. And I think the other aspects is that I think certainly in the financial services, which is really my sector, financial services and the payment sector, I think that, you know, if anyone's reading like FT and any of the papers at the moment, you'll see that our model's not uncommon. You know, quite a lot of the banks are pretty much saying that, you know, they're going to maintain remote working, and, you know, it'll be just for occasional workshops that people will be coming in. So I think when you're leaving and transitioning, I think that's kind of a hard thing to get your head around in the military, because we're so used to being present for, you know, X amount of hours a day and a certain routine. You have to get your head around the different ways of working outside and not be put off by some of that, and focus on what we're good at, the skills that we bring from the military, which is our ability to adapt. When I think of COVID, I think, you know, that adaptability skill is something that most military people have in abundance. And actually, Alan touched on something earlier on about, you know, ex-forces people that are in companies. There pretty much is generally in most companies someone who's ex-military. And I definitely think that helps people's chances of landing softly in a company. And I did an internal webinar in my own company last week. And it is interesting to me how many people that are ex-military that I've never met reach out to me personally. There's a natural affinity between all of us for just having served, and other military people will help you. And I think that's the bit that still touches me after all of these years, is that bond that we all have having served.
I completely agree. It can get you into trouble as well with the humour, but we won't. But we won't touch on that point just yet. Thank you very much, Andrea. And then finally, last but not least, on this question, Carl, how do you see your organisation evolving?
So Thames is, for those of you on the call who are perhaps not familiar, we're an organisation, the largest water and wastewater services provider. We have 15 million customers, so a quarter of the UK's population that we serve clean, safe drinking water to and take away the waste. The company's got about 8,000 sites, so geographically we're quite condensed into the south of England, but obviously the demands and nature of the capital means that, you know, we break ground 10,000 times a month, for example, with our teams, circa about 15,000 working for us at any point in time. Coronavirus has done a number of things for us. One half of our business was pushed to work from home. The other half had to continue going out to the sites. So it really did split the company in terms of what we needed to do to sustain the services. Like many have said, key workers, we kind of carried on for a lot of it. But I guess the challenges then came around setting the environments up at home. And with professional organisations, similar to the military, you would expect a level of care towards employees when they were pushed to work from home, for example. So I issued out thousands of laptop risers. I'm on one now, sat at home, which lifts the screen and makes it nice and easy to sit at whatever desk you're at. You know, thousands of chairs and desktop webcams for the desktop users, etc. But also those going into work, you know, creating COVID secure environments. So, you know, the agility for us to be able to interpret government guidelines and actually then steer the organization. In my role, it was a health pandemic. So the organization turns to us to be able to navigate the complexities of how we deal with setting up testing centers, for example, within the workplace, how we get everybody you know, lateral flow tested in the right way, similar to the schools. Many of you will have faced that, I'm sure, if you've got children. But there was an awful lot of different things that needed to happen. What I've seen, though, is, you know, the future ways of working will be very different because coronavirus has made working from home socially acceptable. Yeah. So you will see different working environments now when you transition out of the military. There'll be a lot more flexibility for people to be able to work from home, which is a good thing. Yeah. So absence, for instance, across my company is reduced by around about 30% in the last year alone because people are working from home. So they don't need to take that time off. They can still work. So a lot of changes, but you'll still find a lot of organizations as we return will still require those face-to-face interventions, you know, out on site working. So depending on what kind of career you're looking for after the military, I think there will be changes, but not on the scale that the pandemic has forced us to make in companies. A lot will return to the working environment. Back to you, Adam.
Amazing, thank you. It's interesting you say that. My commute's gone down from 90 minutes to less than 90 seconds. Well, not even 9 seconds. It's great. So I've adapted quite well. So thank you very much for that. So the next question that I wanted to ask the panel then, and this goes to the heart of the whole topic, why we're here this afternoon or this evening. So it's important that veterans really identify with the skills required in a job specification. To that end, what are the top 2 or 3 skills that you feel transfer well? And I don't mean technical skills. I'm talking about functional skills, competencies, skills that make them make them appear as what good looks. I'm trying to find the right words. You have an idea of what good looks like in your organization. So what are the top skills that you would suggest would make that candidate what good looks like? So over to you then, first of all, Alan.
Cheers, Adam. So for me, I look for a few things: continuous learning, adaptability, and the ability to deliver in high performance environments. And you know, being in the military, you've all had various roles, from basic training, trade training, moving to active deployments, returning from active deployments, new postings, promotions, and each time you've transitioned, you've had to adapt to a new environment, new people, new processes. You know, you've been put in a position where potentially you've had to deliver something that wasn't really something you were interested in, wasn't something that really got you too enthusiastic, but you still delivered on it because that was what was expected in the military. So to me, these are all really valuable. And what I would urge you to do is to sit and think about it and make sure that you have a story so that you can promote how you have been adaptable and how you've operated in a high performance environment. Because to Adam's point, some of the recruiters that you meet maybe don't have a good concept of what the military is like. But when you break it down to what your experiences were in the military, using those skills as good examples, then I think that could be a beneficial for you.
Amazing, completely agree. Joe, your thoughts on the top 2 or 3 skills that transfer well?
So the willingness and want to grow and progress within the company. And then looking at leadership skills. So we all have leadership skills being ex-military. So the ability to inspire, motivate, assess situations and make decisions. And also you have the take risk and determine goals and achieve results through being resourceful, creative, and teamwork is the big key word. And then all ex-military have the integrity, loyalty, character, and self-discipline and control. And we're always mission orientated and a can-do attitude. So that's the sort of things I would look for as a recruitment business partner. Back over to you, Adam.
Amazing, that's really good. Andrea, how do you feel about the transferable skills piece?
Yes, I think Alan and Joanne have actually highlighted a few key ones. And I think just to add, I mean, Alan kind of called this out. I think in the CV and getting that through that open door, I think is being able to give the stories where you're demonstrating those qualities. I think another aspect that one of the things that frustrates me sometimes from people that haven't been in the military, so which, you know, can be a good chunk of your teams, is accountability. Like, holy cow, I give anything to have people that come through the door that not only I've got a can-do attitude, but are going to be accountable. So I think accountability for me is key. And I think I really am drawn to people that aspire, for people that are looking for an opportunity in that break. I'm always drawn to them. I think because I was in that situation myself and was fortunate to get that break, I really look for that in others. And I think I'm not alone on that. I think there'll be other military people out there that are recruiting, and actually some of my civilian colleagues that don't have a military background also look for those type of people. In my own company, we also look for passion for our company. You know, we have a great business, we have great employees, and we want someone to be part of that family. So someone that will embrace the passion and the culture that we have within the company is super important to us. So, you know, and that focus around giving customers the best service. You know, I want all of my team to ensure that our customers have the best experience with us. So everyone, no matter what your role is, whether it's customer facing or not, it has to be that customer centric approach is what we really look for.
Amazing. You got any jobs going?
We've got loads.
And Carl, over to you.
Similar to the others, I mean, I recruited hundreds of ex-service personnel throughout my career since leaving the last 20 years. I suppose the key reason is I know what I'm getting. Yeah. You know, the can-do attitude, the ability to get things done, the ability to push through when the tough times hit. You know, all those qualities that military service people are founded upon are the underpinning qualities I'm looking for in individuals that work for me, and certainly across our organisation. So as you know, within Thames, we've got a very strong military network. And I know many of my partners my peers in other major organisations have the same. So for instance, we all come together once a year at Remembrance Service, and we have our own parade at one of the treatment works, and all the military ex-service personnel come from across the organization. There's loads of us there, hundreds, and it's great, because, and then within the organization throughout the year, we have military insight days, we have so many different opportunities to engage. We have a network through the social media side. So when you come into the company, there's definitely an ability to be able to connect with like-minded individuals. So that's something that works very well, because I think, lots of organizations, if you're tapping into a company that has a strong military attracted ethos, like many companies do now, if you look at most of the majors, you'll hear words like Armed Forces Covenant and things like that. Those are organizations which are very well, strategies are well developed to focus on attracting, developing and retaining ex-service personnel. So similar, that's what Thames does. So I'm looking personally for, those strength of character around leadership behaviors, but also combined with the level of empathy. And that's different from sympathy. It's the ability to understand, what's happening within the organization and what's happening with customers and what's happening with our other employees. But the military breeds us in a way that teaches us to look after our colleagues, right? And that suits me more than anything else, because managing an organization and running big teams like I do is all about people skills. And in the military, we work alongside each other in tough and arduous situations. And that's the kind of individuals I want working alongside me when we're out managing major catastrophic events that are happening in the organization. So you'd be surprised, for those of you on the call that are thinking of transitioning, you probably are not even aware of the volume of skills that you presently have until you leave. I wasn't. Back to you, Adam.
I couldn't agree more. Interesting points you made there on strength of character. One of the things that I've noticed a lot when I've been working in the organizations I've worked and interfacing with ex-service people is they all seem to be good at managing expectations upwards and downwards, managing expectations with their internal or external clients and with their teams. But one of the things that you always notice with a service person in an organization, and it comes from living the life in the military, you always knew where to get your shirts from, your boots from, you always knew where to get your meals from, you always knew who to speak to get that lift into town. That ability to be resourceful and to navigate your way around the business in the same way that you would navigate your way around your battalion, your station or whatever, is a really, really valuable set of skills to have. And it will come in really handy when you enter the service, when you enter civilian employment. So the last question then for the panel, what does great look like in your organization? I recognize we talked about the transferable skills. If you were to talk about how a candidate in your organization positions themselves and how not to position themselves, if we go back to the conversation we had the other day, what do you think great looks like? What would you say great looks like in your organization? So Alan, I'll go to you first of all.
So for me, it's someone who invests in themselves. Somebody who's got a proven track record that they've spent time thinking about how they want to be perceived, how they want to enter into civilian street and their transition. You're coming from a military background where everybody wears the same uniform. It can be quite hard to differentiate yourself in that environment. So it tends to be on your personality. It tends to be on your soft skills. It's how you separate yourself from other individuals. I think, as Andrew said it earlier on about working remotely, this is even more important now. So I'm looking for people with good soft skills, people who can, as you say, Adam, navigate themselves around the business, get things done. It's interesting that you said we're not really talking about technical skills here, because for me, I'm not looking for great technical candidates. I'm looking for people who I can invest time and effort and money into to make good engineers and such and good managers within my environment. It's the person, it's the soft skills.
Amazing, completely. Andrea?
So one last thing.
Oh, sorry, beg your pardon, go on.
No. Enthusiasm. When you're in an interview, let your enthusiasm come out. You know, don't be afraid of coming across as being eager, interested, enthusiastic about it, because as somebody sat on the other side of the table, I want people who are enthusiastic.
Amazing. Andrea?
Yeah, so echoing all of those, you know, I think I think to add to it, I think I also look for flexibility. You know, there's so much change going on, you know, within my particular business, and I'm sure many others across the industry, that I'm looking for people that will be flexible in their role. And I think also, I love it. I so rarely get it, but when I do, honestly, it makes my day. I had one on Friday with just a team member that reached out that had an idea. People that actually bring me ideas, people that, you know, come forward and say, actually, we could do this better. I'm looking for people that want to contribute, that don't want to be task managed. You know, oh my God, I'd give anything for 10 more people that would just pick up stuff and run with it and take the initiative. So, you know, I think they're all good qualities that as leaders, we're all looking for. None of us generally in the businesses that we run have enough doers. Oh my God, like give me 5 more doers and my life would be transformed. So you're looking for those skills which military people have in abundance. And I completely agree with Alan, you've got to be enthusiastic, you know, showcase, you know, what you have done, and don't be afraid of your time in the military, because many of the things that you'll have experienced and done are actually completely transferable to the world that we're in now. So I think all of that is really important.
I'm trying to write notes rapidly without missing the cue. Thanks, Andrea. Carl, over to you.
So the first thing that I would be looking for in any interview scenario is resourcefulness. Yeah. So I will ask questions like, right, who have you spoken to? And if somebody turns to me and says, well, I know what I've read on the internet, anybody can do that. That's not what I expect of a military candidate. I'm asking, who have you spoken to? So, you know, it's not hard nowadays to reach out and to connect with people who are working in the organization you're about to apply for. Yeah. Because nowadays social media allows you to do that. So you can go into LinkedIn, just type in Thames Water and a whole array of things will come up. Yeah. Reach out to one of them and say, I'm thinking of joining the organization. It doesn't matter that you don't know them. The reality is most people will offer advice and they will offer guidance. So you reach out to me on LinkedIn. I read every single one of the direct messages that come through from everywhere, products, services, and everything. I may not reply to them all, but I do read them all. And there's a very between somebody offering to sell me a product and service than there is from somebody saying, I'm looking for a next opportunity. Can you offer any advice? Because those are the ones that I generally do answer quite quickly. So, you know, don't be afraid to reach out. So when I say resourcefulness, think outside the box in terms of what are you going for in this job? Why are you going to this job? And what are you doing in advance to prep before you even get into that interview scenario? The next is inclusivity is massive within employers. Yeah. Now in the military, we're all part of a team. Yeah. Now in Civvy Street, there's a lot of unconscious bias within the workplace. So don't be afraid to talk about the teams that you've worked with and the individuals you've worked with, because we don't differentiate within the military. We are superb at it. Well, it was when I was in there. I'm sure it has got even better nowadays. But it is very, very important, certainly to me as an employer, that you're coming into our organization. I need to make sure you fit with our team. And those are the kind of things I'm kind of trying to tap into. The next is the ability to continuously learn within the company. Most organizations, certainly safety critical organizations like ours, are learning organizations. So the ability to adapt as you come into the company is really important. And by that, I mean being able to go on the courses, being able to upskill yourself. Yeah, the company will pay for it all. You know, very rare anybody does any courses where they have to pay for it. I've put hundreds of people through diplomas and degrees. The minute they come in and they show willing, then I'm able to fund that and actually get them on courses that better and further and bring them to chartership through all different routes and things that we have within the company. So most employers are quite happy to fund. It's just showing that appetite to be able to progress and learn. And that's what I did when I started my journey in Civvy Street. So there's a few things you might want to think about. Adam?
Amazing. I've got goose pimples listening to all these. It's amazing. Joe, thank you. Over to you.
So the panel have covered most of the points I would have shared, but here at Zoom, so we're team players and we're proud of our company values. And as a team, we roar. So our roar stands for, so responsive. We like our employees to be quick to respond to each other and to our customer. Time won't wait and neither do we. Open, so we're open for business, open to new ways to thinking, and we have nothing to hide. And agile, we listen and learn. We're nimble and quick to adapt, change and improve. And then reliable, so we are reliable and so's our network. And this is one of the things we look at when we do our interview process and where they fit in with our Zoom values as well. So that's it from me.
Amazing. I think it's true to say that organizations recognize that ex-military people bring a whole different dynamic and a whole different dimension of skills and experience. If you bring 10 project managers from a financial services organization into a room to deliver a project, they will all have their own preconceived ideas and preconceived approaches. Where it's recognized by organizations now, you bring a project manager in from the police, from the military, from the NHS, they will add a new dynamic and a new approach to resolving issues. So I think everyone in this round table has got experience of working in those kind of environments. So those skills and experience and the competencies really, really powerful, I think. So from that, then, we all know that there are many big brand employers, particularly the ones I'm aware of, such as Airbus, Fujitsu, and Amazon. Fujitsu and Amazon decided that they weren't going to provide any sort of narrative, which is a bit of a shame. But they're all rolling out strategies to actively and in some areas aggressively attract talent from the veterans community as well. Fujitsu is a major public and defense sector outsourcing agreements. Airbus in the aerospace and defense support services and manufacturing. A friend of mine is the head of HR for part of Airbus, and we talk about it all the time. Amazon plans to be an airline. It's got a global veteran strategy that looks really exciting, particularly to do with its distribution network. They're targeting or almost franchising that to veterans globally. It's a major program. It looks really exciting. And I know some companies are working with Career Transition Partnership to publicize their roles. I know people have got a very mixed experience with the CTP, but they are out there. They are engaging very heavily with big branded organizations. And there's also the Defense Employment Recognition Scheme. And I know you've touched on that earlier on. They have a list of companies that actively attract service leavers in the numbers as well. So there is a lot of information from organizations out there. Talking to Craig from Ex-Military Careers, he told me that they know of 192 groups on Facebook that share career opportunities to veterans. That's huge. But it seems to be a lack of a campaign approach globally to building a wider awareness of these roles. So really it's on you as the candidate to make sure that you're posting your CV to as many places as you can and getting out there and looking for these organizations and networking to find ex-military people, find out where they're working and approaching the organizations from there. There are many opportunities out there, and there is a huge world outside of the military that you can access. We've done it. It's not always easy, but it is absolutely possible. However, as Andrea put it the other week so well, if you can't see it, you can't be it. So you really do need to get out there and make the effort to hunt down those career opportunities. And Andrea, I'm copywriting that. If you can't see it, you can't be it.
That's fine.
So the final bit of time, then I'm not quite sure how much time we've got left, but what wisdom would you like to share with the audience when it comes to making the move? What are the things that the lessons learned? What if you could look back at your time transitioning? What one of the kind of 2 or 3 things that you'd like to share that really made a difference to your transition? We'll start off with Joe this time.
So prepare, you should be thinking about transitioning out well before you actually do. Think in terms of months or years, not weeks. Job searching is difficult and often takes a long time. And it's even harder if your chosen career requires secondary education that you don't yet possess. The key is to form at least a basic plan whilst understanding that it's okay to re-strategize at any point. And then preparation helps you get moving, speak to your resettlement officer and plan out your transition. And networking is key. And your transition is the perfect time to reach out to military networks and start making connections. And there's numerous groups and organizations that bring veterans together and help each other find jobs and stabilize their life as a civilian. That's it from me, Adam.
Amazing. It's interesting that I got somebody said to me a little while ago, I won't tell you who said it, but they told me that the time to start planning your civilian life is the day after you join the military, which kind of seemed a bit bonkers to me, but there we go. Carl, on to you. What nuggets would you like to share?
So I get that anybody transitioning out, it's a scary time, especially if you've got families and loved ones that you have to look after whilst you're doing this transition, yeah? But you have to get personal about it. And by that, I mean, understand and play to your strengths. So, you know, there's no point in me when I was transitioning trying to become a chef, right? Because I'd never done chefing before. Unless I was going to go and do some major courses or, you know what I mean, it wasn't going to work, right? So I kind of knew what roughly I wanted to do when I left. And then get personal. Nowadays, you can reach out, as I mentioned it before, reach out, find out who the individuals are within that work stream, within the top companies that you want to work for, and actually reach out to them. And you'd be amazed at the response that you will get. Yeah. And the final thing is, I mean, when we talk about network, I know it's not a term that comes to hand in the military. Well, I mean, I don't have any civilian network. That's what most military guys say to me. But the reality is, look at the individuals on this call that have given their time free of charge to be able to try and help, right? Adam and Joanna, recruitment specialists. You know, the rest of us are directly employed by organizations. But you've got recruitment specialists. And if you look at Craig and his team, that are listening to this, reach out to them because they patch you into the right people in organizations. We have an amazing military network and an amazing ability to be able to connect you with the right people in right organizations that will give you, again, a steer. So you'll get sent down all sorts of avenues, but don't be afraid to start writing. And not everyone works, yeah? Not everybody will respond, but you have to kind of kiss a few frogs and get out there and try and find, that job.
Amazing. Andrea, your thoughts?
Yeah, so just to add on to it all, obviously the world is a different place now from when some of us left the military. But I mean, if it was me now, and certainly with the model that I use now for my own career, I think there's also an aspect around a bit of personal brand. And I think, the sooner you become adept at using LinkedIn, Twitter, and some of the social media tools, I think that's super important. I think it's an opportunity for you to, if you've identified maybe the sector you're looking at, to really focus in on some of the key companies in that sector and identifying people within those companies that you can reach out to. LinkedIn is an amazing tool. I use it all the time. I think another aspect as well, on top of the veteran networks that you can leverage, I do an awful lot in my sector within our networking that occurs within my industry. So I think, again, if you've already set sights on a certain sector, there will be trade bodies, there'll be networking groups, they're always calling out for people. So I mean, I'm chairing an industry group within my industry. We're always looking for more people to join us, more people to volunteer on leading some of the lobbying activities. I can guarantee this is the case across nearly all sectors, and people will welcome additional people to those networking groups or those trade bodies for help and support. And that in itself will open doors for you. So don't be afraid of that. You know, people reach out to me. I do get ex-military reach out to me on LinkedIn, same as Carl, probably same as Alan and Joanne and Adam, just reaching out, asking questions, you know, how did I make it into this sector? So don't be afraid if you do see people that you can see have had an ex-military background and are in companies that you're targeting, of reaching out to them, and they will then guide you in, probably through their HR teams, whoever their various contacts are. So social media is really key, and I don't mean to be harsh to anyone in the recruitment space. I now only ever get my roles and opportunities. They all come through my network now, because of that brand and that personal network that I have created out there myself. So it is really important now to kind of have that profile and be very visible. The days of us all hiding, that's long gone, long gone.
Amazing. Alan, your thoughts?
Okay, so I'm quite pleased I'm going last on this one, because listening to Jo, she's done her planning. Carl, he's identified his sector. Sorry, Andrea, you identified your sector. Carl, you've reached out to get all the background on everybody within that sector. So then the next phase is just do it. You know, apply for the roles, give it your maximum effort. Make sure that when you apply for the role, basic things like a cover letter that differentiates yourself from everybody else, make it personal, talk about your transferable skills, talk about why you want to work for that company, why you're leaving the military. Make the person engaged when you're reading that CV and cover letter, because as Carl will tell you, you know, there is double-digit applicants for every single job out there, and people will sift through the roles very quickly. A good cover letter stops people straight away and engages with them. So make sure that when you get the interview, you treat the interview seriously. We're all sat at home now, nice and relaxed. Make sure that you present it as if you are sat with somebody face to face. It's the first impressions. It's the same as the first day at basic training when you walk through the door. You know, those first impressions last when you do that interview. Make sure the recruiters see how the military has shaped you as an individual, and ultimately be proud of the service that you've provided and the experiences that you've gained.
Amazing. Finally, I'd like to just add to that. I think everyone has made some incredibly valuable points. One of the things that I learned a number of years ago as part of my interview training, I did a bit of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming training, and there was a couple of things I'm not active with it, but there was a couple of things that I learned that have been really powerful for me over the years. First of all, the concept of running towards versus running away from is a really obvious thing for a good recruiter. If you're seen to be running away from the military because you hate it, that says a lot about you. But if you're seen to be running towards that organization as a way to further yourself, as a way to better your career, as a way to use your skills in a new environment, that says a wholly different thing about you than I'm leaving the military. I hated it because my feet were too big and I couldn't get good shit. I couldn't get good boots. They are two very, very different things. So look at your career in a positive light. Look at the things that you gained, the things that you learned. Look at all of the life experiences that you gained, because they shape you and they shape your personality. If I look back at being in attendance to various different royal visits when I was in Northern Ireland, it shapes you. Some of the daft things that we did at the same time, I won't go into that, but they shape you as an individual. Use that to your advantage, because it builds your personality. So be positive, be driven, and come across as though you really care. It will make all the difference. So thank you very much, everybody, for your wisdom in sharing that with us today. Craig, over to you.
Thank you very much. Firstly, I'd like to say thank you very much to each and every single one of you. Obviously, you've taken some of your personal time out to come and provide your advice for our attendees. I'd like to pick up on some of your points just before we go into the Q&A, because there have been some questions in there. And I suggest that if you guys want to get more personal with the panelists, then please follow the link inside the chat to go to our networking session, which we'll do in a couple of minutes' time. Carl, one of the points that you pointed out is networking. I just want to reiterate how important networking is. And from my standpoint, I think it's the most important thing. It's what got me my first role within civilian industries. Essentially, all I saw was a post on LinkedIn, and I reached out to that person who put the post down there saying that he's offering free courses for ex-military personnel. And we got chatting, and he, in line with that, he got me my first interview with another company. So that was my sort of steer in civilian industry. So networking to me is the most important thing, because when you network, you're a person. When you're applying for a job through a jobs board, you're just a piece of paper until you actually meet someone. So if you're looking at a job, like one of the panelists said, see who's actually advertising for that job, reach out to them on LinkedIn, because everyone is on LinkedIn, and speak to them, introduce yourself through there to get yourself through the door. Also, if you need any advice, that is what Ex-Military Careers is here for. If it's interview techniques, if it's whether CV tips or anything like that, reach out to me or reach out to us, and we are here to help you. That is what we are here for. In terms from the audience, if you can just start writing the questions in the chat, and we can start going through that. One of the questions that have come through first from Sophie, Andrea, I'm going to put this one to you, if that's okay. Sophie says, how do you try and get around companies or hiring managers that have a stigma about people coming from the military?
Yeah, I guess I think we touched on this a little bit earlier. I think it comes back to talking about the transferable skills. I think that I think it's really unfortunate if you end up with someone who has a perception of the military that isn't real. So I think it's important how you articulate some of the skills and experiences that you've had and how they relate to that company and that role. So I think when you're looking at the job specification, it's trying to relate that back to experiences that you've had would probably be my advice. I don't know if anyone else wants to pick that up better, because I've not had that experience, if I'm brutally honest, and my experiences have always been positive. I haven't had a negative experience of anyone that has assumed something else about my time in the military. So I guess it'd be interesting to understand from the audience if people have actually had that experience.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. And I think it'll be very hard to get into a situation like that, because if someone has a stigma around the military, you're not really going to get face to face with that sort of person, are you? And if you do get to that point, would you really want to work for someone who thinks like that?
Exactly. I think the important thing though is I think that, I mean, generally, if you're, there's certain aspects in the military that many of us have come from where it's quite clear we had a trade. So, and I think that it's important to focus on that. I think, if people have a perception that, we're basically, running everywhere with a gun and, out in the field all the time, that isn't the case for everyone in the military. And I think for those that have been in those scenarios, so people that have served in Afghanistan and Gulf and all the rest of it, I think, again, it's drawing on your other skill sets and deflecting away from, maybe that image that people see on TV, that it isn't all that we do in the military. It's one aspect and a smaller aspect generally.
Okay, no, that's great. Thanks very much, Andrea. We had another statement from Florrie. Florrie, I advise you on your question to come into the networking room and speak specifically around Alan, because as you're probably aware, that Alan deals in sort of satellite communications and everything like that. Another question we have is from a candidate called Craig, or from an attendee called Craig, and basically he's saying that he's from the infantry and essentially he doesn't come from a trade background. It is what sort of advice would you give someone like that? I'm going to put this to Carl.
So it doesn't matter that you don't have a trade. I've employed hundreds of people that don't specifically have unqualified as a mechanical, electrical, plumber. I mean, the vast majority of people don't have trades, but ultimately it doesn't stop you being able to work. In terms of, look at Thames Water. We train people in water treatment. We train people in toxic gas management, in dealing with wastewater treatment. When I came to Thames, I didn't understand anything about water. I worked out on the rigs in Australasia, and I didn't understand anything about oil and gas at the time. You'd be amazed at transferable skills, as long as you have the willing to be able to go to that interview and say, hey, I'm really interested in working for Thames Water, for example. I want to come on your Military Insights Day, where, you know, we employed 30 people last year, and you know, we've got 300 people on our talent list at the minute. So, you know, these Military Insight Days for us are great, and I know many big companies do them also. But again, it's about reaching out and then going to have a chat with and see what you can do, because you'll be fascinated with how much you can do. I've got a fleet management team. They're ex-military, with an ex-military guy leading it. You know, they don't have trades, but ultimately they were involved in the MT side of the army. So it's interesting how much you know. Okay, so don't worry, don't let that phase you.
Okay, thank you very much, Carl. I'm going to cut the Q&A there, because I know we can pick this up again in the networking session. So if everybody does want to do that, Carl, I know that you can't go into the networking session. I just want to again thank you very much for taking part in this. It really is appreciated, and I'm pretty sure people have learned a lot from you. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Thanks, Carl.
Cheers.
Carl.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
So
Yeah,
that's it from our side. Thanks again, Adam. So what we'll do now is the link should be in the chat. If you just click on that, it should take you to another Zoom room, and we can pick up the networking from there.
Yep. Well,
Thanks very much.
See you in the Zoom room.
See you in the Zoom room.
Zoom room.